There was a time in my life when I thought money was the problem. I thought if I could just make a little more money, everything would change. I thought a bigger paycheck would solve my stress. I thought another opportunity would finally give me the freedom I wanted. And maybe you've thought the same thing. Maybe you've told yourself that your life would be different if you just earned a few $1,000s more every month. Maybe you've convinced yourself that the reason you're struggling is because you haven't found the right job, the right investment, the right business, or the right opportunity. That's exactly what I believed. For years, I lived with the feeling that life was happening to me. I felt like everyone else had some secret that I didn't. I watched people succeed while I stayed stuck. I watched people build wealth while I struggled to get ahead. And every time I saw someone doing better than me, I would tell myself a story. Maybe they were lucky. Maybe they had connections. Maybe they were born into a better situation. Maybe they started with advantages that I didn't have. Those stories made me feel better for a moment. But they kept me trapped. Because the moment you blame something outside of yourself, you give away your power. The truth is difficult to hear. Most people are not poor because they lack opportunities. Most people are poor because they have developed patterns of thinking that silently keep them where they are. I know that's uncomfortable. It was uncomfortable for me too, because it forced me to stop looking around and start looking in the mirror. The day I stopped asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and started asking, "What can I do differently?" everything began to change. Not overnight, not in a week, not in a month, but little by little. The shift wasn't in my bank account. The shift was in my mind. And that changed everything. Here's something nobody talks about. Before money grows in your bank account, it grows in your thinking. Every successful person understands this. Every person who builds something meaningful understands this. Money is often the visible result of invisible habits. It's the result of decisions nobody sees. The books you read, the conversations you have, the way you spend your evenings, the way you react to failure, the way you manage your emotions, the way you think about responsibility. Most people spend years trying to change their circumstances while refusing to change themselves. And that's why they stay stuck. Imagine planting an apple seed. Would you dig it up every day to check if it's growing? Of course not. You understand that growth happens beneath the surface before it becomes visible. Success works the same way. Financial success works the same way. The problem is that most people quit during the invisible phase. They quit when nothing seems to be happening. They quit when the results aren't immediate. They quit when progress feels slow. They quit because they confuse a lack of visible results with a lack of progress. But progress is often happening long before success becomes visible. I learned that the hard way. There were seasons in my life where I felt like nothing was changing. I was learning, reading, improving, growing, but my financial situation looked exactly the same. And that's where most people give up. They say, "This doesn't work." They say, "Nothing is changing." They say, "Maybe success isn't for me." But what they don't realize is that they are often standing inches away from a breakthrough. One of the biggest mindset shifts that changed my financial life was understanding that income rarely exceeds identity for very long. Think about that. Most people focus on changing their income. Very few focus on changing their identity. They want millionaire results with average habits. They want extraordinary outcomes with ordinary commitment. They want financial freedom while maintaining the same mindset that created financial stress. That doesn't work. Your life tends to move in the direction of the person you believe you are. If you see yourself as someone who always struggles, you'll unconsciously make decisions that reinforce that identity. If you see yourself as someone who always fails, you'll hesitate when opportunities appear. If you see yourself as someone who never gets ahead, you'll find evidence everywhere to support that belief. Your mind is constantly searching for proof of what you already believe. That's why changing your beliefs changes your future. Not magically, practically. Because beliefs influence actions. Actions influence results. Results influence your life. The chain starts in the mind. And once I understood that, everything changed. I stopped focusing on what I lacked. I started focusing on what I could build. I stopped asking why successful people were different. I started asking what they did differently. I stopped seeing obstacles as evidence that I should quit. I started seeing them as evidence that I was growing. That single shift changed the trajectory of my life. And it can change yours too. One of the most dangerous lies I ever believed was this: I'll start when I'm ready. Maybe you've said that before. I'll start investing when I have more money. I'll start my business when I know more. I'll start changing my life when things calm down. But here's the truth. Ready is a feeling that never arrives. Most successful people didn't start because they felt ready. They started because they were tired of staying where they were. Think about it. If confidence came before action, nobody would ever struggle. But confidence comes after action, after the first step, after the first mistake, after the first failure. And that's where most people get stuck. They're waiting for certainty. But life doesn't offer certainty. It offers opportunity. The people who move forward aren't always smarter. They aren't always more talented. Often, they're simply willing to act while everyone else is still thinking. That realization changed my life. I stopped asking, "What if I fail?" and started asking, "What if this works?" That single question opened doors I never imagined. I grew up believing hard work was the answer. Work harder, work longer, work more. And don't get me wrong, hard work matters. But hard work alone isn't enough. Because there are millions of hard-working people who never build wealth. They're exhausted, they're dedicated, they're disciplined. But they're running on a treadmill. Working harder at the wrong thing won't change your future. Imagine digging a hole. If you're digging in the wrong place, digging faster doesn't help. You'll just end up in a deeper hole. That's what many people do financially. They focus on earning, but never focus on growing. They focus on working, but never focus on learning. The richest people understand something powerful. Income is important, but skills are even more important. Because money can disappear, skills stay with you. Skills create opportunities. Skills create value, and value creates income. The moment I understood that, I became obsessed with growth. Not just earning, growing. This was probably the hardest lesson of all, because blaming feels good. It feels good to blame the economy. It feels good to blame inflation. It feels good to blame your boss. It feels good to blame your past. The problem is that blame has a hidden cost. It gives away your power. Because if everything is someone else's fault, then your future is in someone else's hands. And that's a dangerous place to live. The day I stopped blaming people was the day my life started changing. Not because the world became fair, not because opportunities suddenly appeared, but because I finally took ownership. Ownership is powerful. When you own your mistakes, you can learn from them. When you own your decisions, you can improve them. When you own your future, you can change it, and that's when growth begins. People often ask successful individuals what investment changed their lives, but they ask the wrong question. The better question is, what habit changed your life? Because wealth is often the result of habits. Small habits, daily habits, invisible habits. Most people underestimate the power of 1 hour. 1 hour reading, 1 hour learning, 1 hour improving, 1 hour planning. 1 hour invested daily can completely transform your future. Think about where you'll be 5 years from now if you improve just a little every day. Now think about where you'll be if you don't. That's the difference. Not talent, not luck, consistency. The ability to keep going when nobody's watching. There is a prison that doesn't have bars. Most people live inside it, and they don't even know it. It's called limiting beliefs. Beliefs inherited from family. Beliefs inherited from culture. Beliefs inherited from fear. Maybe you've heard things like, rich people are selfish. Money changes people. People like us never get ahead. Those statements seem harmless, but over time they become programming. And your mind starts building a life around those beliefs. The truth is simple. Money is a tool, but it doesn't make you good. It doesn't make you bad. It reveals who you already are. If you're generous without money, you'll likely be generous with money. If you're kind without money, you'll likely be kind with money. Money doesn't create character. It exposes character. Once I understood that, I stopped seeing wealth as something suspicious. I started seeing it as something that could create freedom. Freedom to help. Freedom to give. Freedom to choose. Freedom to live with less stress. We live in a world obsessed with speed. Fast food. Fast internet. Fast results. But success rarely works that way. Most meaningful achievements take longer than people expect. That's why most people quit. Not because they can't succeed. Because they can't wait. They plant a seed today and expect fruit tomorrow. They start a business and expect success next month. They start learning a skill and expect mastery next week. That's not reality. Every meaningful achievement requires patience. The problem is that patience is difficult when nobody can see your progress. When the results are invisible, when nobody is cheering for you, when nobody believes in you. Those are the moments that define your future. Because winners and quitters often start in the same place. The difference is that one keeps going. Looking back, my life didn't change because of one opportunity. It changed because of one decision. A decision to stop waiting. A decision to stop making excuses. A decision to stop living as a victim of circumstances. I decided that no matter what happened, I would keep improving. I would keep learning. I would keep growing. I would keep moving forward. Not perfectly, but consistently. And over time, that changed everything. The opportunities appeared, the confidence appeared, the growth appeared. Not because I waited for them, because I became the kind of person who was prepared for them. If you're listening to this today, I want you to remember something. Your future is not determined by your current circumstances. Your future is determined by the decisions you make today. You don't need a perfect plan. You don't need perfect timing. You don't need perfect conditions. You need a decision. A decision to grow. A decision to learn. A decision to take responsibility. A decision to become stronger than your excuses. Years from now, people may look at your success and call it luck. They'll see the result. But they won't see the struggle. They won't see the discipline. They won't see the sacrifices. They won't see the nights when nobody believed in you. They won't see the moments you wanted to quit. But you'll know. You'll know that everything changed the day you changed. And that is the mindset shift that changed my financial life. And it can change yours too.